This hangout on air is live. Welcome into the show. It is the Audible live here on Thursday night. No Thursday night football, but who gives a damn? The show is here. It is the Audible. Cecil Lammey, Sigmund, Matt Waldman, Week 16 Fantasy Championship, and our season finale. As you know, we take a little bit of time off with the live show on Thursday nights, our YouTube channel. But we thank everyone for subscribing. We will have some coverage from the road, from Mobile, Alabama, and the Senior Bowl. Never know when I might do a surprise hangout from the Super Bowl or something like that as well. So we appreciate you guys watching for 9 months out of the year. We're going to take a couple of months off and, have some stuff here and there, but the regular Thursday night show, this is a wrap for this season. And Bloom, it's hard to believe it went by so quick again.
It went by so quick, but it feels like so many things happened this year.
Yes. We've experienced multiple seasons this year.
Yeah, there's been more up. This year has been so dense with meaningful twists and turns, and we found ourselves on the preview show this week saying that this is the kind of year it's been. And, in 2017 we can say you can trust Blake Bortles in your fantasy championship, and Case Keenum is a top 5. Case Keenum is a potential Super Bowl quarterback this year, and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna take the wheel and steer it. I'm actually facing John Norton in a Red Eye Masters IDP final. And this is a good league. It's chock full of football guys. Aaron Rudnicki's in it. Dr. Gene is in it. But I won on a stat correction. I don't know how to feel about this, guys. Can you give me a blessing on this? Because this is like we're old enough to remember. We'll see. You don't watch baseball, but in baseball, it used to be that the umps blow calls, but that's just how it is, and we can all know the umps blew the call, but we all live with it. And is that okay, or is it the age of replay? We said we get the call right, even if it took until Thursday. Because I looked at the site Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I lost. I actually had dropped. It's a dynasty league. I actually dropped like all of my extra players to pick up, guys like Robert Davis, to see what happens in the offseason. I had to scramble and pick them all back up so I could field a full lineup this week because of the stat crash. Should I feel good about this?
Matt, what's your judgment call?
I think that I think it is what it is, and just accept it for that. It's just, I just look at that situation and really, the fact that everything's automated as it is, and they take it on the way that goes. It's unusual, but if you were, think about it this way, if you knew that the stat was supposed to be a certain way and it wasn't, you'd be waiting all week for it to happen anyway. So, I've won a league by 0.1 of a point once, and it was because of a play that happened where they pushed the player out of bounds, and they actually, and it was like one of those weird things. I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was just a really weird thing in terms of like getting that extra yard, and it was crazy. It was a horrible way for a person to lose, but at the same time, that's just how the breaks go. So yeah, I would feel all right about it.
It's like having something called a touchdown, and then they go up to the booth, and then they take the touchdown away, and then on the next play you throw an interception, and then you don't have home field advantage, kind of like that. No, so
it's just it happens on Thursday instead.
Right. Instead of during the game.
I think that actually makes it worse, Bloom. Not saying there's an asterisk next to your potential championship, but I'm just saying I lost a championship one time. I had a Saints stack, right? I had Ricky Williams, I had Aaron Brooks, and I had Willie Jackson, I believe. And Brooks threw his touchdown. Jackson, corner of the end zone, boom, touchdown. I win. I won it. I won the championship. Replay, Jackson didn't get 2 feet in bounds, boom. So in that felled swoop, I went from like, I'm the champion to, oh my God, I lost now. This happened over days, so I'm sure that's much tougher for you.
Well, I'll say this for Buck Wild. That's who originally beat
Wild.
Me. And it was actually C.J. Mosley got credit for a forced fumble and a tackle, and they switched over to Tony Jefferson. But I will say this: no one cares about our team, so I'll say this. This is the reason. Make sure commissioners, or if you're not a commissioner, look at your rules and make sure stat corrections are covered. Because John Norton, who is the commissioner of this league, of course, had it in the rules that all the I Sports Bureau will issue stat corrections, and we will recognize all the stats corrections. And I think there are leagues out there that don't have a rule on stat corrections.
Right.
And even if you just say all results are final on Monday, that covers it because the stat corrections come out like Wednesday.
Well, and this is what we build up for, right? And I've been involved in some leagues that have fallen apart on a personal level because there's some controversy during the playoffs, or there's some controversy because some rule wasn't put down somewhere and somebody didn't know. And that's legitimate, right? It's not just someone trying to find a loophole or complaining, but you should have everything covered, because if you get to this point, how nervous was I this week on the previous shows, Bloom?
Yeah.
Like, you get to this point, it matters a whole lot. So make sure all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, and that's the thing. I mean, you kind of want to make sure that the commissioner that you have, that you look towards in the future, is a pretty reasonable person that you voted in, that you know, kind of has all that stuff covered, and is kind of a stickler for making sure that all those things are in place. Or if they aren't, that you all trust that person's judgment, so that when they have to make some sort of call that wasn't anticipated, that everyone's going to be able to go, look, we can accept it and go with it, and not think of some weird favoritism, crazy thing, you know? So, I mean, it's that's a job, and it's a thankless task being a commissioner. So, you know, definitely raise one up to the good commissioners in fantasy football in your leagues, because it is a thankless task.
Raise it up right here on the Audible, little Jack and honey. So there you go. Get it on. And Bloom, what are you drinking tonight as we celebrate the season and going through our questions here in the chat room?
Guinness stout. I wish I would have poured it right before we went on the air so that you could watch the surge, the train. But there was a time, and we're old enough to remember, you know, there was a time, didn't Beastie Boys rap about mix the Bass Ale with the Guinness stout? I mean, that was, you know, a hipster beer, a Guinness stout, and now it's pedestrian.
I remember when the guy who started New Belgian Brewery did it from his basement in Fort Collins, and he would buy cigarettes from me at my gas station.
I remember Irish car bombs.
Oh,
yeah.
Just don't let the shot glass hit your teeth.
Exactly. Watch out. Clank it. Don't clank it. It is the Audible Live. It is championship week. We're going to be talking a lot about the issues, and kind of, Matt, what I set up this week on the previous show is the temptation, because you will be tempted. And we talked about this when we talked about what the heck flex. I was like, I don't really want any what the heck flexes. And when I look at Cleveland and Chicago, that is the first temptation. So for all the sinners out there, Matt Waldman, how tempted are you to start the Bears defense? How tempted are you to start? We're starting Jordan Howard. Let's get that out of the way. Everyone's starting Jordan Howard. But in this matchup, and I understand the general rule, like in fantasy football, who are the Browns playing? Well, it's the Bears this time around. But where's the temptation for things like the Bears defense or Kendall Wright or even Josh Gordon on the flip side? You know, how do you look at that game specifically, as you try not to get too cute in championship week, Matt, but obviously you want as many points as you can?
Yeah, and sometimes you have situations like, like me, I faced Bloom this week in our staff league, and I lost Antonio Brown. So, you know, what do I do at that point? It's like you've got to pick some guys up and see who's got some good matchups there. And I picked up Kendall Wright. And trust me, I'm sitting here looking at our Football Guys roundtable as I'm editing it and seeing the suggestions for Kendall Wright, and I'm thinking, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. And then I'm reading Dan Hendry, you know, and I'm reading a couple other folks on our staff, and I'm thinking that actually it makes a lot of sense. And I'm looking at the stats and thinking, yeah, I'll pick them up. So, you know, it's one of those deals where, again, you're looking at the logic of the situation. How many weeks have those players been playing well? Are they getting a lot of targets? Are they converting those targets? Are they facing a defense that actually is going to make that opposing player target worthy? And, you know, from a Kendall Wright perspective, the answer is yes. Now, does that mean that Mitchell Trubisky, you should go ahead and start in a 2-quarterback league? Probably not. You know, just because he may find Kendall Wright 5 times in the final 8 minutes of the game doesn't mean that he's going to be a big time player. You know, but at the same time, Kendall Wright, Tariq Cohen, especially a team that likes to run blitz a lot, that is very aggressive. Think about guys who are going to be able to cut back on them, or going to be able to get open behind the defense. And Kendall Wright's that guy who'll probably get open in the middle behind a defense. He'll be kind of the substitute for a tight end in that regard. And Cleveland's terrible against tight ends. And then you also look at Tariq Cohen, who's a guy that's a blitz beater on his own. You know, you could see a huge play coming from him if you're desperate for someone. And you've seen that kind of boom bust ability with him. So those are the two guys that I'm probably most interested in, though. Of course, Dontrell Inman has been a pretty okay guy at certain times, but I just don't think that, you know, you look at the trends. I think that Wright, Howard, and Cohen are your safest plays of your, of that situation. And it would be Howard, Wright, Cohen in that order of like from safe to desperation.
Dontrell Inman does have a license to ill, Sigmund. Let's do all Beastie Boy references tonight because it's sabotage for your fantasy football team that you lost AB. And Bloom, nobody cares about your team or my team or Matt's team. But just as an example, in my championship game, I'm playing without Antonio Brown and Devontae Adams. So I got Keelan Cole off the waiver wire, and I already had Marquise Goodwin. Jamison Crowder will be my third guy. But let's talk about some Antonio Brown replacements for Week 16.
Yeah, I'm actually facing two teams that lost Antonio Brown, including Matt Waldman. And also, I'll say, got arrested at Mardi Gras for jumping on a float. My man Matt Waldman's got a beard like a billy goat. Yeah.
True that.
Yeah, this is a good night. Potential replacements, and this is assuming that we're digging deep. I mean, because Keelan Cole's interesting, and D.D. Westbrook's interesting, and I wish Allen Hurns. I wish Allen Hurns all the best in his recovery and get healthy for the playoff games, so we can have more Keelan Cole and more D.D. Westbrook. Because the process says Jacksonville wide receiver is a good play, but like last week, it might be hard to pick which Jacksonville wide receiver. If you're digging deep in some players that might not have been in consideration, but should be this week, Mike Wallace. Against Indianapolis, very poor secondary. Jeremy Maclin's banged up. You look at Mohamed Sanu last time out with Marshawn Lattimore locking up Julio Jones. I think Sanu had about 6 for 83 and a touchdown. Robbie Anderson is back in consideration this week. It's Casey Hayward, not Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, they're both good corners, but we know Bryce Petty has some chemistry with him. Cody Latimer. No Emmanuel Sanders this week?
Maybe a limited Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah, well, I'm surprised they haven't put him on IR, actually.
If Sanders plays, Latimer, not so much, and then Brock Osweiler has to play, too. If it's Paxton Lynch, run. Adam Humphries is interesting this week with Deshaun Jackson out, O.J. Howard out. Carolina, I don't know what the state is with this Captain Munnerlyn beefing with the team, but certainly that makes slot receiver. I think that Randall Cobb had like 14 targets last week. Kenny Golladay becomes more interesting with TJ Jones on IR. Now Golladay is the true number 3 receiver on this team, and that makes Eric Ebron a little more interesting too. But they're playing the Bengals, and the Bengals have really given up. I mean, can we remember another situation where a team had their coach say during the season, by the way, I'm leaving. So the Bengals are a team you're inclined to play anybody against them. And just seems if we have to go even deeper than that,
I've got one that I want to put a challenge out for people with.
Please,
okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, and he's on Jacksonville, and I'll say this: any Audible listener who basically has the guts to start this player in their championship game, and they win, and they can send me proof of it. Actually, let's say make it the first 3. Any 3 who do it, I'll give away a 2018 RSP draft package.
Holy cow.
And for that, because I actually picked him up, and I may start him against Bloom, but I don't know if I have the stones to do it. And it's Jaden Mickens, the former Oakland Raider, former UW Husky, who had a pretty good game. And the reason that I think he might be a really weird desperation play who could pay off. And I'm not recommending it to people, but it's more of a challenge than it is a huge recommendation. But if you're really deep and desperate, I would consider him because he's very quick and fast. He's always had reliable hands. And the way that Jacksonville likes to play, Lori Fitzpatrick did a really good job of this on Twitter this week, diagramming how the plays and showing that one of the things that they've loved to do with Keelan Cole is cross him in the middle of the field with another receiver and get him a mismatch against a linebacker where he ends up getting deep because they're facing zone coverage, and then they crisscross those players, and his speed ruins them, and they usually put the primary corner on Westbrook these days. And Westbrook, while he can make some plays there, the easy plays are going to Cole. Well, last week, a lot of easy plays were also going to Jaden Mickens, and also in the red zone, he was being looked there. And those two are the ones crisscrossing. So it turns out that Mickens oftentimes winds up with a safety working a wheel route or working some crisscross type of route 15, 20, 25 yards down the field. And I could see a situation where you look at San Francisco's defense and he winds up matched up with a guy that can't handle him. And has a big play or two, whether it's in the red zone for a shorter play or it's, 25, 35, 40-yard gain or longer because of his punt return skills after the catch. So he's a guy I would definitely, I find interesting. I think Eli Rogers would be an interesting play just because of what he does in the red area. That's a desperation play that wouldn't be too bad. And I definitely love the ones that Bloom mentioned with, when he was talking about Latimer and Kenny Golladay, because, the Bengals, their linebackers look clueless against Minnesota. I mean, the amount of yardage that those running backs got, and that, that makes you think about if you have running back flexes. Theo Riddick is a really nice on the record, kind of on the radar guy, because what Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray did in the passing game against the Bengals last week was ridiculous. And maybe even, I hate to say it, but even Tion Green might be an interesting play, if you're at the Jadon Mickens level of desperation.
Well, and Mickens, Eli Rogers, Chester Rogers, there's some interesting small guys, Bloom, including Damiere Byrd.
Yeah, Damiere Byrd, who's only 24 years old. He's not Steve Smith, but he's got that diminutive. So there's a certain kind of speedy wide receiver. Like we think of Deshaun Jackson. We think of these guys that are short but slight. And I don't think Damiere Byrd is slight. He's solidly built, but he's got the vert, he's got the 4.27 speed, and he's just been not able to stay healthy. And I think that he's going to endanger the value of Devin Funchess. And what I'm most interested in here, and really I want to fast forward to talking about the playoffs and the playoff bracket, because the NFC playoff bracket, how many times have I caught myself saying, I just want to talk about the NFC playoffs.
Right.
Because Carolina's that team that nobody's talking about on that side of the bracket. And their offense is finally coming together, peaking at the right time. Last week was the week that it looked like they were going to be able to pull defenses in all those different directions, have those tools necessary. And either way, trading Kelvin Benjamin, I think it's proven out to be getting a third-round pick for Kelvin Benjamin's been an outstanding move for this franchise. So Damiere Byrd's interesting. The red zone wonder, getting his butt down. The butt was in for the replay overturn last week. And, you mentioned a few other, if we're going deep, Jaden Mickens deep this week. We'll see about Samaje Perine, Capri Bibbs. So you can add your scouting report on Capri Bibbs. You've certainly watched him enough in practice. And Elijah Penny. And I know that, Matt, you were talking about Elijah Penny, I think even back in the preseason when folks weren't even aware who he was, and he was still fighting for just a roster spot. And here we are come week 16. And since we say it every year, running backs that weren't even on a roster at the beginning of the year, or running backs that were the fourth string running back at the beginning of the year, can be the difference between winning the title and going home.
Yeah, let's talk about Penny and Bibbs, Matt. And with Bibbs specifically, first off, give us an update, Matt, on the latest Samaje Perine, the groin injury, the practice tweak, what we're looking at there. Game against the Broncos, revenge game for Capri Bibbs, whatever. Really good burst. He already has a nose for the end zone. There's only 3 backs in FBS history that have over 30 rushing touchdowns in a single season. One's Monte Ball, one's Barry Sanders, and one's Capri Bibbs. So we know he's got a nose for the end zone. He wasn't really used much as a receiver at CSU, but I've seen him catch enough out of the backfield that I feel that he can cleanly convert from a receiver to a runner, show that burst after the catch. So there's some interesting things to like there about Capri Bibbs, and he's an instinctive runner. He's not the most powerful guy or the most elusive guy, but he doesn't take a lot of false steps. So that's something to appreciate about his game as he's bounced around off Denver, of course, on his way to Washington there. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Penny. Matt, any latest? We don't have Dr. Gene tonight. He's on assignment. He's on vacation. He might be having a cocktail somewhere. But we need to go over this Perine thing because it happened today in practice, and it could impact fantasy championships.
Yeah, certainly could. And, when you look at the situation, though, Perine's the type of guy, that he could get he could have gotten a ton of carries, and he's someone that, it really is dependent on about how well Washington plays, and they haven't been very good lately. So, game script could get away from them in that respect. But, Bibbs gets Capri Bibbs gets the shot to be able to get a lot of volume, both in the receiving game as well as a runner. And like you said, he's a solid football player. He's got a good all-around skill set, nothing special athletically on the NFL level, good enough to be, in the league. So that means he can get you yards that are blocked and maybe a little bit more. If he gets in the open field, he's definitely going to be able to get you a little bit more. So, that's not a bad play. Elijah Penny's an interesting play because when you look at the New York Giants matchup, they're a bad defense. And you think, okay, well, he could get the ball a ton of times. Kerwin Williams has certainly got a lot of carries over the past 3 weeks. And then Penny got 10 carries for 45 yards last week. And he's a guy, he's a big guy, powerful. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's kind of a fullback, running back tweener. Arizona doesn't have the greatest line at this stage. But at the same time, they've shown at times throughout the year that they've been committed to running the ball. My biggest concern is really about how good their quarterback play is going to be. Now it's Drew Stanton who's going to be in there. He's averaged about an interception every 40 to 45 attempts this year. And when you look at the quality of the receivers, who are in the lineup and the offensive line, and you look at how Eli Manning played last week, even with reserves, I look at this game, it's a situation where I feel like Penny could be a decent desperation play because of the potential for volume, but I also think there's a big potential for the Giants to create a game script where the Cardinals have to get away from the run pretty quickly, and then Penny really is more of an afterthought in this game. And I think that's just because of the way we've seen Manning play with receivers like Tavares King and Roger Lewis and Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. I think that they have enough firepower, even though some of those names seem, not really big time known guys with a portfolio in the NFL. They still have some talent there, and Eli seems to have worked well with some of them who are the lesser known guys. So for me, if you have like a Buck Allen against the Colts, that might be a better play. I think he might be a better play than going after a guy like Penny because, even though the potential is there in your championship game, you'd really like to start guys who you've seen something that it's not only who you've seen something with them, but the team has. And the team didn't just go, oh, well, we gave some mop-up duty to this guy because Williams got hurt, and let's roll the dice with him. That's something you do, maybe, I don't know, week 7, week 8. but right now, I think that's a tough call to make. And I would say try to go for the more than no thing.
Bloom, if you listen to me for any amount of time during the fantasy season, I'm always talking about Monday Night Punch. How much do you subscribe to that, and how much do you break ties with it? Not only in Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, right? There's a Monday Night Punch that you get from Roethlisberger at Houston on the road, Steelers on the road, no Antonio Brown. But I want to bring up Nick Foles. What if you're staring at Nick Foles, Blake Bortles? What do you do in that situation? What if you've got Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo? Maybe it's a 2 QB league, and you're looking at Garoppolo or Carr. Are you as much of a believer in Monday Night Punch as my nervous Nelly self is?
Well, I think there's something to be said for that delayed gratification. I think there's something to be said for, and I suppose Christmas really adds another angle to it, because we know that players around the league do actually care about primetime games. Primetime games, especially Monday night, are the games that all the other players are watching, and they know it matters. And I suppose great players rise to the occasion. The same kind of players that you expect to rise to the occasion in the playoffs, you would expect to rise to the occasion on Monday nights. So I think there's something to that, and I like that idea. I mean, now this week there's the Saturday night special, where you break the seal early and you get to see, I'm going to play Mike Wallace so that I get to see a little early what's going on with my team. I'm going to play, Jerick McKinnon. But it does make you feel like, I will say this, when on Sundays, when the scores are starting to pile up in the live scoring, it does make you feel like it's okay. Stay calm. I still got Monday night, and we've all seen some pretty crazy deficits made up on Monday nights. But looking at these Monday games, I definitely think that, you do have the Ben Roethlisberger on the road. You have the Steelers playing down to their competition factors, but the Steelers passing game has been magnificent in the second half of the year. And I think that Roethlisberger, Bryant, Smith-Schuster, I like that Eli Rogers call as a deep sleeper. These guys are all going to exceed expectations, I would expect. the Oakland Philly game we're going to watch Saturday night. Remember, Philly has made some indication that they might rest starters on Monday night if Minnesota loses. So Minnesota's got to take care of business for this game to matter for Philly. But I do seem to remember Nick Foles against Oakland. Nick Foles against Oakland was pretty good at one point in the past. He threw a lot of touchdowns against them. Like, was it 7? Yeah. So I like Nick Foles this week. I like Nick Foles a lot this week. In fact, I don't have. I should have ranked him 7th. I've got him 8th. It would have been perfect. It would have been perfect. He's actually my number 7 quarterback, but he's number 8.
Sigmund Bloom with his John Gruden. I like this Nick Foles. Let me tell you about that. And when we look at the construct of the National Football League, we are year-round. You know, the show's going to take a little bit of a break. We'll have a couple things for you. But one of the things that we get to do is the All-Star Road Trip. And for now 12 years, I have made the journey to Tampa and to Mobile, Alabama. Any other Texas Nation game or Players All-Star Classic, although it's been a while since they've had either one of those games. Last one was us and Dane Brugler, Bloom, down in Dallas. That was the last Texas First Nation game. Latavius
stadium
Murray.
that they've closed, right?
They reopened it. They remodeled
the $60 million high school stadium. $60 million. We're going to get off on a tangent now. $60 million high school stadium. Texas, everybody. Texas.
Yes, an indoor practice facility. That was Ryan Griffin, the quarterback. That was Latavius Murray.
Kenbrell
Tompkins was there. Yes. So one thing that we've done, Matt, is I bring up Jimmy Garoppolo there. I saw him at the Shrine and the Senior. You saw him at the Senior. We've spent a lot of time talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. I've seen you post some things on Twitter and discussing Garoppolo and just the changes that he's made. And we always talk about the current construct of players. One of the problems that Garoppolo had at Eastern Illinois, and he had the quick release, right? And short and intermediate accuracy. He's always had that. Quick release, just like bam, and get it out of his hands quickly. And it's something that we had talked about and we had praised. One thing that he didn't handle so well was pressure. How is he different now, Matt, with Jimmy Garoppolo? And this is more of an off-season conversation as well, because the word was initially that they would franchise and flip Garoppolo and they would get Cousins. Well, now talk to Adam Schefter, and he's insisting that Bruce Allen is not just going to let Cousins just go. You know, not see ya, get nothing for him. They'll transition tag him. They'll franchise tag him. They're trying to flip him as well. Now, Doug Williams, as I've learned and reported, is off traveling, looking at Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold and Josh Allen, all the top quarterbacks. So Doug Williams is out there looking at, first round top flight quarterbacks for the Washington Redskins. And the marriage is done. We know that between Cousins and Washington, but Allen may want a little something or a lot of something for one Kirk Cousins. That rolls into Jimmy Garoppolo. Now with the success that we've seen there, does that change Kyle Shanahan's mind if the plan was in fact to franchise and flip Garoppolo? How has Garoppolo himself been different? How much can fantasy rely? Because Marquise Goodwin's been a hell of a play. This week, it's a hell of a matchup. So how do Garoppolo and company, Goodwin, et cetera, how do they respond this week against Jacksonville?
Yeah, I mean, and I can't really speak for anybody else about this, but I can say that, the great mystery about Garoppolo was going to be how he handled pressure once he got into the league. We saw, and it wasn't one game or a set of plays or a few series. It's a series of games. It's going to be a season and a half before we see how he responds to a week where things get really, things get really hairy. And you can see that teams blitzed him a lot. Last week, the Titans blitzed him a lot. Now, part of that is because, Dick LeBeau, but at the same time, you would think that a team probably has a little bit of a book on him from their college scouting days and said, well, what do you have on him? Because we haven't seen much of him out of New England. And New England, he's got so many weapons around him that, unless we could get to him enough to see him be shaky, we wouldn't know. But I can say this is, a lot of people are going to talk about, oh, he learned a ton from Tom Brady while he was in New England. And the answer to that is, you're wrong if that's what you think from the standpoint of how he throws, because you can go check out the Mercury News. They did a really nice piece on him showing how he worked with a quarterback coach by the name of Jeff Christensen who was in the Illinois area, and how Christensen from his high school days was like, this is the guy you're going to model after. It's Tom Brady. His release, how efficient his motion is, his footwork. These are the things that we're going to have you do. Now, the thing that I know that bothered me about Garoppolo at the college level was that I felt like there were times with pressure that it looked like that he, you know, for one, he would turn his back away to try and protect himself when he was throwing, which isn't a bad thing if you're getting the ball off, you're being accurate, and you're standing in there and just protecting yourself. But sometimes it seemed like the defender wasn't anywhere near him, and he was still doing it as if he was anticipating it, you know. And there were a number of plays in the past 3 weeks I've watched. I've been really impressed with him, and I've looked at his, and some of the things that I've learned over the past few years as well is that he has very quiet feet. So he's very good at being able to set up in the pocket and move to stay in rhythm with the throw, but not move dramatically in the pocket, if much at all, so that he can stay on course with his footwork and deliver the ball with velocity and accuracy. And that's sometimes moving side to side or swiveling around from progression to progression. He does that excellently, and he's so quick and smooth with his footwork and light that I could see how that's possible looking at some of those issues at Eastern Illinois or things that I saw, and I go, well, maybe those weren't issues at all. But there were some, I went back to look at some of that tape, and I thought, no, there's some pretty clear instances here where it looks like he's seeing ghosts. And so we don't have enough tape from the New England days to really say. And what I can say is, you know, looking at the stuff on Twitter, it's looked all very good. You know, taking hits from Clowney, getting, you know, standing in there and dealing with the pressure, firing it with people in his lap, and, you know, so that tells me that he's not afraid of pressure on that level. But he does sometimes look like, you know, he's a little self-conscious. He's a little conscious of that pressure coming. Like there was a route where it looked like a go route up the right sideline that was a deep route in the Titans game this Sunday, where pressure was coming off the right side. And the pressure didn't get anywhere near him. In fact, there was still a blocker in front of the guy, and it was probably at least 4 to 5 steps away when he decides, I'm going to throw off my back foot. And while it was going to be a high throw anyway, so you might say he's arcing the ball a little bit, he threw that ball so high without any velocity and didn't step into it that it was actually well short. And it gave the defender the angle to defend the play as opposed to letting the receiver run under it and throwing with a little bit more zip. Now, it's just one play, but it's something that I've seen that I want to continue to note, you know, take notes about. So I think the jury is out on, you know, we haven't seen enough tough situations for him to say unequivocally that that's not an issue. But I can tell you that I've changed my mind enough about him that I would feel very good about him as a low-end quarterback one in fantasy next year. I think that the 49ers are sold on him. I think he's shown a lot thus far as a, you know, from a technical standpoint, he's found the easy plays. And that's what good quarterbacks do. They find the easy plays. Brent Hundley makes lots of tough plays in this, you know, in the fourth quarter, he's making tons of tough plays. But the reason that he hasn't played as well is that he didn't make the easy plays. He didn't spot the easy plays. And that's what young quarterbacks who need time don't always do very well. And Garoppolo's come in there and hit those. So I'm much more positive about him, but I still know that we've seen quarterbacks, Nick Foles, who've been great one year, and sometimes we don't see them get exposed because we're not NFL coaches or scouts who are looking at certain types of game film and going, okay, this is how we're going to scheme against him. And that hasn't been done yet, I don't think. So I like him this weekend against the Jaguars defense. I still think that we're going to see some pressure. I don't think I like him as much to the tune of the 300-yard days and 1 touchdown that he's had, you know, against the Texans and then last week against the Titans. But I think you could see, you know, 250, 260-yard day out of him, a touchdown, probably an interception, you know, getting sacked a number of times. This is going to be the fun test outside of fantasy where it's going to be like, okay, if this Jaguars defense can get to him a good bit, how's he going to react? You know, if he gets his clock cleaned a couple of times, is he still going to be steady ticking, or is that second hand going to be like wavering a little bit too much and not be as reliable? And without him getting hurt, I'd still I want to see him in those situations to see how he responds, because he's going to need a number of those before we're really out of the woods with him yet. But this weekend, Marquise Goodwin, he's probably going to get covered by Ramsey. And that's going to be a tough draw. I mean, I know that Marquise is fast, but you're probably going to be looking again for Garoppolo. It might be Kendrick Bourne or Brent or Garrett Selleck if Selleck's healthy, as guys that you're really be looking at as probably the main options for your fantasy needs if you're, looking in that kind of desperation level.
Just wait until the 49ers get Saquon Barkley next year. There you go. I'm going Mr. Miyagi on the 49ers, Bloom.
And not just that, but I mean, there was maybe this is taking, Twitter scuttlebutt a little too seriously, but it just makes sense that, an agent said that a wide receiver who's a free agent next year called him and said, I want to play. How can I play with Jimmy Garoppolo? And it just makes sense, right? I mean, it isn't just that having a quarterback means you can win games, or having a quarterback means that you have the most important position as a plus on your team.
Mm-hmm.
But it changed. Haven't you seen the entire San Francisco team change?
Yeah.
When Garoppolo got on the field.
And that's such a great point, because I mean, if you've ever worked somewhere where you had a really crappy manager and they sucked. I mean, people hated them. They hated coming into work. They had, the manager was inconsistent, and some people got in trouble for things that were stupid, and other people got away with murder. And then a good manager comes in, and within about 2 weeks, they clean up everything. And people are ready to go into work. People want opportunities to do well. They want to prove themselves. They're not just kissing somebody's behind. They're actually buying into what's happening. And so, while Kyle Shanahan says the whole CEO thing, I'm sorry, I don't think he understands. It's a nice analogy, but if we're going to be really specific and nitpicky, he's more, a quarterback's more like the middle manager of a team. He's not the CEO. He's not making decisions for the team as a whole. He's making decisions on the field. He's the operations guy. He's the guy that basically they tell him the BS of the dream of what he needs to do, and he has to make it a reality. And he has to sell everybody else below him on the BS of that dream, say, look, I know this is BS and the coaches want us to do this, and it's all going to be nice, clean, neat, and pretty in the abstract here out on the practice field. But for real, this guy is kicking our behind right here, and there's a problem here, and there's a problem here. But let's just make sure we can do that. We'll get through this, and we'll make it good. We'll make it as good as we can make it and deal with it. And I'll be the guy that is accountable for that. And that's the reality. That's the reality of a situation. That's the reality of quarterbacking. You're that guy, except in the PR standpoint, when you get up there on the podium and then have to be the face of the franchise on that level. I guess you get a little bit of the CEO aspect of it. But really, when it comes to, being on that team, he has that. He has that charisma, and it doesn't hurt. I mean, it sounds silly, but, he's a good-looking guy. He has the aura of working with the Patriots and coming from there and working behind Tom Brady. He's playing well at this stage.
What is it? Matt, we boil it down. It's simple confidence. I mean, a lot of old school scouts will look at a player's girlfriend. This isn't a Nick Casa, do you like girls type thing.
Right.
Because get down how you get down, baby. But this is okay, if a guy's able to maintain a relationship with his wife and he's mature and he's handling his business, that comes down to confidence. Jimmy Garoppolo said that what he learned from Tom Brady didn't have anything to do with on the field. It was that quarterback is a lifestyle. And speaking of turning dreams into reality, I talked to Kirk Cousins Wednesday. What day is it? Wednesday. And would not take the bait on anything Denver. Like, hey, did you grow up idolizing John Elway? What do you think of Cherry Creek? You like snow? Did you like snow? You like skiing? Like, it wouldn't take any of the bait. So when we hung up with him, and I didn't know he was still on the line because it's that awkward, like, are you going to talk? We're going to talk? We're going to talk? And he's still on the line, and I go, hope to see you next year. And he's like, well, okay. Dreams into reality, Bloom. How in this Garoppolo conversation has sparked something on the other side with Blake Bortles. You started the show, Bloom, saying we can trust Blake Bortles. Wait. We can trust Blake Bortles? 2017, you wicked mistress.
All year, baby.
All I'm thinking about right now, Cecil, is I can't believe it took me 45 minutes into the show to recognize that you're wearing a Mr. Bungle hat. But
Mr. Bungle. Mr. Broccoli?
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Brock. If you don't know Mr. Bungle, you should know Mr. Bungle. We're old. We're really old.
Was crack influenced so much by Mr.
Yeah,
Bungle?
crack was mainly influenced by Ween, Frank
Yes.
Zappa, Fish, and Mr. Bungle, I would say for sure. Audience enjoyment is not mandatory. It's optional. And anyway,
An acquired taste, Bloom.
yeah. Well, yeah. I was just asked about. I was on Scott Engel was doing a good show, the Fantasy Hall of Fame Hour.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And he asked me about crack on
what? Seriously?
Yeah, about crack on the Fantasy Hall. I guess it's the internet. You can find
Surprised
things
Scott
out.
didn't ask you about Kiss since he's such a big.
He did. No. He said you're a big Fish fan, but he's a big Kiss fan. I said, but actually, Kiss was my first favorite band when I was like 3 or 4 years old. I remember walking around listening to Kiss, and like when the solo albums came out, and going to the roller rink. I was made for loving you, and all that good stuff. But I'm supposed to talk about Blake Bortles. This is what happens. This is what happens. Just
Blake Bortles is kind of like Bloom on roller skates. That's
Yeah.
something we got to see now.
Yeah, exactly. No, but this is something that I've talked about on a few other shows, and I believe around week 6, week 7, around the time that he had that excellent game against Indy, you knew that this team had a good picture of themselves after the Pittsburgh game, and they should be thinking Super Bowl. They should be thinking championship. If Trent Dilfer and that Ravens team can win a championship, this team can win a championship. If the Broncos with the ghost of Peyton Manning can win a championship, this team can win a championship. However, to win a championship, to break the Roethlisberger-Brady stranglehold on the AFC side of the bracket, Blake Bortles was going to have to make a few plays at some point in the playoffs. And if they kept having him throw the ball 22, 25 times a game, and the team didn't trust him, and he didn't trust himself, and they were scheming games as if they were trying to have him have the least possible influence on the game possible, then you get to that key moment where your defense has held Tom Brady to 17 points, but it's 17-14, and you need a drive. How is he going to have confidence in himself? How is the team going to have confidence in him? And they needed to let him play. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. It wasn't better to find out now and then to find out in the playoffs. And Cease, I think you can probably remember in 2004 when the Steelers made the AFC title game with Roethlisberger as a rookie, Belichick taught him a thing or two.
Oh, yeah.
And then come 2005 and Kimo Van Olhoff and all that good stuff. But still, then you see all of a sudden when the Steelers go to Indy to face Peyton Manning and Ken Wisenhunt's calling the shots, and I think Bill Cowher let up a little bit. Now you see Roethlisberger throwing on first down. Now you see the defense really off balance. Well, this isn't what we were expecting. Jacksonville has to at least have the potential to do that. And I believe
they've shown that over the last month to let Bortles go.
They have, and it's working. And it's working with their number 4, 5, and 6 wide receivers. And it's really been something to behold because now we do trust. I've said it so many times this week on radio spots and on our shows. We trust Blake Bortles this week. I mean, we trust him because it's San Francisco. We trust him because of how his receivers have been playing. We trust him because of how they've been calling plays, how they've been executing. And it's really incredible what you can see, whether it's Garoppolo or Bortles or Ben Roethlisberger as a rookie, how that confidence that you point out. I think of Ryan Moats when I think of confidence, how all that confidence we saw at Louisiana Tech, just Cody Latimer, confidence. But you see the confidence of being in a situation, because when I think of Garoppolo, and I think this is something that may come back to why it might be good to let quarterbacks, with the exception of the savants, sit for a year or two, because then you feel like you know what you're getting into and it's easier to be confident. And kudos to Tom Coughlin and the organization for how they've handled this Blake Bortles situation every step, because what makes this so stunning is that we can rewind this to 4 months ago, August 21st. I would say we'd be taking 50-50 bets on Blake Bortles even making the final roster at that point. And now we're thinking about him as a quarterback we trust in fantasy leagues in the championship, and a quarterback who can do some damage even without his top 2, top 3 receivers. So absolutely, Bortles, go, take it, Matt, take it.
I love this, and as you've been saying this, I thought of one other quarterback this reminds me of, and it's a little further back, and it will probably strike a nerve with you guys. And as a Browns fan, I'm glad. Terry Bradshaw.
God, he was horrible.
Terry Bradshaw was his image was hung in effigy in Three Rivers Stadium. Yeah. He was horrible, and he was known as a bit of a partier. He was known as kind of a kook and kind of just a backwards, kind of, small town guy who, they wondered if Chuck Noll really even wanted him.
Nothing wrong with backwards small town guys.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I lived in a few myself. So, but I qualify probably right now. But but that was the perception in Pittsburgh. They were like, we're a blue collar city. This guy's from the South. There's that kind of perception thing going on with that. But when you look at how Bradshaw evolved over the course of time, he was an aggressive, athletic player who oftentimes just didn't read the defense as well as he should have and continued to make the same mistakes over and over again. But he was mobile. He had a good arm. He could escape pressure. And sounds like Blake Bortles. I mean, I've always, scouts I've talked to when we talked about Bortles was like, he's always going to be a guy who's going to miss some reads on defensive reads that you really wish he wouldn't miss. But he also has that element of he can escape. He can make plays happen. If you can rein in some of that and keep him focused and working, he can be good, And we saw that 2 years ago. I mean, look at Allen Robinson and Allen Hurts. They were two of the best vertical targets you could possibly have in the NFL.
Well, dudes, look at Case Keenum. I mean, we have a recent example of a guy that was an afterthought. What this has got me thinking now, Matt, are there any players that have been sitting that maybe were even a Sean Mannion? Do you guys remember some of the hype that was swarming around Sean Mannion before we knew, okay, Jared Goff was going to get it? Do you remember that? Because I do.
Hey,
and we saw Mannion at the Senior Bowl, so we know him. But I'm thinking Chad Kelly, who has figured out he's figured it out as far as the off-field stuff, and he's always around Bill Musgrave. Like Paxton Lynch sitting on a bench in a Santa hat. He ain't doing anything. He's playing Xbox. And Chad Kelly's in his playbook, throwing 70 yards on a dime last time I saw him throw. I'm thinking of A.J. McCarron, Matt. So we can definitely look and praise Bortles and Garoppolo and this recovery and, talk about Case Keenum. My God, Case Keenum. Yeah, but there's also guys just sitting there that maybe Case Keenum's taught us something, hey, some of these guys might get a different look.
I wrote him up when he was in Houston and said I was impressed and did a whole thing on him a few years ago saying I was impressed with a lot of what I saw, and here we are with a good offensive line and good surrounding talent, and he's playing extremely well. I think Kevin Hogan could be the next Case Keenum, and I know that a lot of people might go, well, how is that the case? He's a third string or second string quarterback for a Cleveland Browns team. Well, if he winds up in another city or with a veteran quarterback in front of him for a change, this is a guy who I remember, he has a horrific looking release. He's a very good runner, but he's someone who I was told by some quarterback coaches that he literally has off the charts ability when it comes to processing the game. Like his ability is as impressive as any college prospect that they've seen in recent years. It's just that his mechanics were horrific and needed a lot of rework. And he's already reworked some of that. And he's hanging around. And I wouldn't be surprised if he bounces around and next thing we know, we're looking at him and thinking, oh, he's Drew Stanton. We're never, he's always going to be a backup. But he ends up on a team where something works out and turns out to be okay. I mean, it sometimes it takes these guys a few years. I mean, it's like, to me, Cecil, quarterbacking is like learning how to drive. You're going to teach someone how to drive and you learn the rules of the road. You learn how the vehicle basically functions. You learn the physical skills of driving, but you've taught your kids how to drive. I've taught my kids how to drive. There's some things you just can't teach them just by telling them. It's like the water. It's like the stove is hot type of thing. They've got to have those experiences that shake them up a little bit and realize, dealing with a pedestrian that's stupid and tries to give them the right of way when they don't have it, or, some driver who's tailgating them crazily or driving in a way that isn't on paper, and how they respond to that and even if they get shaken up by it, how they respond to it after that. And quarterbacking is just like that. It takes some time, and sometimes you have to go through that stuff to really get a feel for it. And other people, they're more naturals, and but everyone thinks that what they're going to look at is some natural race car driver who's going to come out there. That's what all the owners want. So put him in right away. When a guy like you said, Chad Kelly, Patrick Mahomes, those guys are going to get a year, maybe 2, and they're gonna come in there. And man, I just can't wait for the AFC West in about 3 years, because I think Chad Kelly, I've been saying it all year, Chad Kelly, Patrick Mahomes, maybe it'll only be
Cardale Jones,
maybe Cardale Jones, maybe Bloom can't wait for Cardale Jones, and that he's sitting behind Phillip Rivers and have those 3.
And a head coach who believes in him. Anthony Lynn, I think Anthony Lynn believes in him, and that's another thing that where confidence comes from.
Teddy Bridgewater's going to land somewhere, and we all know what he can do, and he's had time to sit.
And remake his body.
I don't want to sound too excited about a guy from Greeley, but Kyle Sloter. They will not let him go.
Yeah,
they will not. They do not want him exposed to the waiver process to slip him through to the practice squad, and there's a reason why. So, all very fascinating indeed. By the way, pro tip for everyone out there: don't put your 18-year-old behind the wheel of your Shelby if you want to keep your tires. I swear to God, he must have burned rubber like 10 times. I'm riding with it. I'm just like losing my mind. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. Sorry, Dad.
I taught Chandler how to parallel park. She'd parallel park around me up hills and like in between cars, and she's looking like a pro. And people are like, "You parallel park, man." And I remember after she finishes her driving test, and we're driving back, and she nearly sideswipes us into like a dump truck, right after the thing. And I'm sitting here going, it would be after all of that would be the one thing happened driving back home from that. So,
I didn't get my driver's license until I was 24 and totaled my first car 2.5 months after I got it.
See?
Wow. Sigmund Bloom. We are all this is the last show of the year. But it's Christmas time. It is a time of giving. I love the listening audience, the support, the love, the energy from you guys. It's always a great time of year to give, but this is an important time for many people, and it has hardly anything to do with presents under the tree. It's just the feel. There's also, if we want to go this route, there's also a lot of depression during this time. So make sure to, be monitoring your family and your loved ones, your friends, your coworkers. It's not invasive to be like, "Hey, is everything okay?" How you doing? Stuff like that. That's helpful. It's all helpful. Reaching out that helping hand. You never know, when that could be the biggest help. So do that. And you guys, we hear from a lot of you like, "Hey, it's therapy to listen," and we've gotten so many great stories. I mean, from people going through just horrific stuff, and they're listening to the show just trying to take their mind off things. I totally get that. But I also want to know that that's reciprocated, that you guys do the same for us. So thank you for allowing us this audience, this venue, this avenue to express our opinions, Bloom, and to just share the experience, right? And to share the community that we love and that is built.
Yeah, this was fun. This all comes back to you and I geeking out and talking on the phone for 3 hours about the draft, and you said, "Let's record it." And through that, we have this community. And a couple of things you touched on, I'll just reiterate. I've often joked that for me, podcasting is basically saying, "Can anybody hear me?" And then someone will say, "Yeah, I can hear you." Like, okay, cool. Because it makes me feel like I exist, like that I matter. And we're here to do that for you too. Anytime you want to know if someone can hear you, I can hear you. We can hear you. And likewise, if we are helping you because it just takes your mind off of things, there's no time that I feel more weightless than whenever we're doing these shows together. And a lot of that's the energy that's fed in. So this community and what we've grown out of this is so much more precious than an occupation. I know people saying, and you're right, we're so lucky to get to do this, and it's a great job. And it absolutely is something that we're grateful for. but the community and the moments and the people have been brought into my life, our lives, and the people and the lives we've been brought into. That's what's lasting. That's what really this story is about. And I think you're absolutely right that, checking up on each other, asking for help. I made the speech on another show because it is that time of year that and anytime I give advice, it's advice directed back at myself. Okay. The number one mistake that we all make is not asking for help nearly often enough when we need it. You're not a burden. Something about the culture of this country, rugged individualism. We all need people to make it. We all do, every one of us. And there's nothing wrong or weak or something to look down upon if you need other people. And in fact, when you need somebody, you're giving them an opportunity. When you ask someone for help, you're giving them an opportunity to have grace flow through them, because there's no better feeling than helping somebody that you care about. And I think we all know that work or cleaning up the house or going to buy Christmas presents or whatever it is, like, I've got to do this. And then you get a call or a note or text from somebody that says, hey, my car broke down and I need someone to come pick me up, or whatever. And you feel it flow through you, like, right away, I'm there, because you get a chance to show someone that you care about them and that you're there for them. And asking for help is not a burden. It often can be something that creates a wonderful moment, better than any material thing. So I encourage everybody out there, if you feel like you need help, ask for help. We all need help sometimes.
Asking for help is not a weakness, it's a strength. And Matt, we appreciate everyone out there, holiday time or no, all the time.
Without a doubt. I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, listen, it's the same. It's for all of us. But when I think about everyone who listens out there and reads what we do, you've given me a career. I've referenced things that I did in the past, but I hated doing that. I never thought I was going to be doing, I never thought I was going to be in a career for as long as I was doing the things I was doing. And I used to have former coworkers and friends going, we were the last person we thought would still be doing X, Y, and Z, and being here. And I used to think, what have I done with my life, at that point? And, and I've certainly we've all been through tough times. You live in life for any period of time and you're going to deal with tough stuff, and I will definitely say that before I started the RSP, there was a time that, I had to ride a bicycle 10 miles round trip every day and pretend that it was just me wanting to have exercise because I lost my car. I couldn't even afford a car because I was going through some things that I had to help others with that I cared about. And I finally decided at one point that I wanted to do something that I love, because I felt like if I've done well enough to do something that I hated, then how could I lose if I did something that I love? And that it was about putting positive energy out there and doing that to the point where, maybe it'll come back in return as long as you stay persistent with it, and sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. And, yeah, I remember the first time we all had a conversation, you guys interviewed me, and I remember talking about a running back from Pennsylvania, Hunt, and being so excited in my little office, in my garage converted office, to be hanging out and talking with you guys about the NFL draft. And now, I mean, I look back on it and, I just put the RSP up for pre-sale, and it's not some drop to try and tell you to go get it. I don't care. It's not about that. But what I'm bringing it up for is that when I get to announce that type of thing, while certainly money and what sales do is a way of gauging success because it's about how people value it, the most gratifying thing that I get all year long from the work that I do is the emails and tweets that I get from people who just, the things that they say is just like every time it happens, it is so humbling, and it makes me want to cry. I mean, when I see it, because I look at it and I think that when people show that kind of appreciation for the work that you put in and for what you give out, and you get that back, and then on top of it, you get the opportunity to say, all right, I get a chance to help other people out and give back through that, and do something that I care about. And it makes me feel good about the efforts that I make. When I get that back from you as a listener or as a reader, it's the best moments that I have all year. And and I hope for that every year. It's just unbelievable. And so I just want to tell everybody out there, I love you guys, and I appreciate, how you respond to the work that we do here, and I hope that all of you have a wonderful holiday season. And I think that you guys, touched on it well. When you get a chance to help other people, you get a chance to do something positive that you feel like you're serving other people on a level, you're giving more back to yourself than you even realize.
He's Matt Waldman. It's fantastic. Sigmund Bloom, amazing. I am Cecil Lammey, and this is the Audible and a wrap for the season of the live shows. Of course, subscribe to us on iTunes. The podcast will continue. We're around 240 episodes this year. That's what we're going to do. We don't go away. We'll lighten the load a little bit. We'll do some video stuff here and there. So everyone stay subscribed. We appreciate each and every one of you on iTunes, on YouTube, etc. Because you guys make it happen. So there we have it. Everyone, thank you very much. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.